You're listening to the Doctor Is In podcast. This is the show where you get the best tips, tricks, and nutritional hacks to help you and your family get healthier. You'll also hear what works and what doesn't work so you don't have to waste your time and money. All right, let's get started.
Hello, I'm Dr. Martin Jr.
And I'm Dr. Martin Sr.
And this is the Doctor Is In podcast, and this is episode 103. On today's episode, we want to talk about a few things, actually. There's, we have a couple notes of some studies that came out over the last little bit, so we figured that we would talk about a few of those studies. A couple interesting ones on coffee, because we get asked about coffee a lot, right? Because people love their coffee, and they want to make sure that it's good for them, that they're doing something that they should be doing and not. So we had a lot of questions about coffee.
True or false? True or false? I have been saying for as long as you've known me, which is all of your life, right, that coffee's good for you.
Yes.
Even when the gurus out there in the health thing were always saying, like, coffee is acidic, coffee isn't good for you, cut back on coffee.
Yeah, coffee.
And I never was part of that.
You've definitely been
Now,
consistent.
Your mother used to say, well, you're looking only for studies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, the funny thing about, there's no question we have a little bit of a confirmation bias when it comes to coffee. I read through a lot of studies every week, and if I come across a coffee study, it draws me in, right?
Yeah.
There's no question.
And if it's negative, I don't read it.
Yeah, we just dismiss it. But the fact of the matter is that, a lot of research is showing that coffee is actually quite good for you. I remember back a while ago that coffee drinking was associated with increased risk of colon cancer and all these things, in which they've shown that is not the case. Because you know what's funny? In research is a funny thing, right? Because a lot of times these studies, a lot of these studies are association studies, and especially when it comes to eating, what happens is if I were to do a study and if I brought everybody into what they call a metabolic ward, I bring them into a place, they live there, they all do the same activities.
They eat the same thing.
They eat the same foods. Yeah. They breathe the same air. Then you can control it somewhat. But a lot of these studies, what happens is, you get a bunch of researchers together, they ask a question, they start doing some research, then they send out these food questionnaires to the participants. So I don't even remember what I ate yesterday. All of a sudden I get something in the mail, and I got to remember what I ate 2 weeks ago. Also, everybody does this. It's like golf, right? Yeah. Everybody lies about their golf score.
They cheat. Yeah, they don't think they consume.
No, so they're filling it out
as much as they,
and they're like,
I never eat that.
I'm not going to put these. I'm not going to put the Kit Kat bar that I ate 3 times. I'm gonna say that I ate kale, and so that's the thing. And when it comes to these things, that's what happens.
I had a guy in this morning, and it was funny because men are the biggest liars in the world, right? Like you say, the golf game, but in the room. He wouldn't come in with his wife, so I
guess he didn't want to get busted.
So before his wife, so I did her all her biomarkers and everything, and she said, "Oh, by the way, you're seeing my husband next, and don't believe a word he says."
Yeah, no kidding, because they're all saints.
Yeah,
I mean they're all eating,
and it's true enough.
Yeah.
I went in there. I said, "Oh," because I checked his insulin. His insulin was high right out of the gate. He had insulin. He actually had a little bit of sugar in his urine. I said, "Like, you're either diabetic or you're no, not me.
I don't. No way.
No way.
I
never
anything.
have any." But his wife had just told me what kind of garbage he was eating.
Well, and that's another thing when it comes to these things, because so what happens is they get all these food diaries, these questionnaires in, and they're all lies, first of all, right? They're all, like I said, people want to make themselves seem a little bit healthier than they actually are. So they underreport big time. That's
this guy eats bacon, you see? Then they go against, so bacon can't be
Well, that's
good
the
for
problem.
you,
That's
right?
what I was just going to mention. In these studies, what happens is that, so they get all these data and they say, okay, all these guys have high blood pressure and they all eat steak. Therefore, meat's not good for you. Mm-hmm. That's what they find. But what they don't tell you is that they're eating steak and potatoes and bread and
chocolate bars.
Yeah, that's
drink Pepsi.
That's the problem.
And they smoke.
Yes. Or they drink alcohol and they blame the steak.
Yeah.
They're like, well, see, meat eating is bad for you. Like another study came out recently again. Like, when are they going to stop saying that meat's bad for you?
Yeah.
It's not the meat. It's the potatoes and it's the chocolate and it's the beer. It's the stuff they're drinking with that they're consuming with the meat.
Yeah.
But they'll isolate the meat from the diet and they'll say it's the meat. See, that the meat's bad. It's caused. All these people that have a heart attack in the last so many years in this study all ate red meat, so therefore red meat's bad for you. I think it had to do more with the fact that they were smoking and drinking beer all weekend, and eating fast food. And this is another thing. This is another pet peeve of mine. They'll say fat's bad for you, right? High fat, which is, I mean, that's been disproven. So I mean that's over.
Dead in the water.
But they'll say, for example, this is funny, right? They'll say, for example, like, the problem is fat. McDonald's is a fatty meal, right? You go to McDonald's, it's a fatty meal. Okay, I have an issue with this. If you were to take the macros of a meal, get a burger, a fry, and a drink, it's not a fatty meal. It's a ridiculously high carby meal.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some fat in there, but the problem is that they're consuming almost 200 grams plus of carbs in one meal. It's not that it's the fat.
Yeah.
So they're going to say McDonald's is fatty. No, McDonald's is carby.
Yeah.
It's a high carb meal. And that's the problem with these studies is they get all this information and then they say, oh, so let's go through everybody who's had high blood pressure in the study and let's see what they all have in common. Oh, they all eat meat. Well, a lot of people eat meat, but it ain't the meat that's the problem.
Yeah.
And that's the issue that we have with these food questionnaires. I have a copy of the food questionnaire questions that they ask. Like I said, I don't remember what I ate yesterday. And if this thing comes in, I'm making myself look better than I am. I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm eating this, I'm eating that, and I'm not going to include this. And of course, I mean, that's the reality. So a lot of these studies, you take it with a grain of salt. And definitely these association studies, right? I mean, those ones there. But anyways, okay. So when it comes to coffee, let's talk about the two studies, and then we'll finish this episode off by talking about, since it's the time of year, we're recording this at the end of September 2017, and we're entering quote-unquote flu season. Let's talk about how we can get ready for that. So we got a couple of things. Okay. Let's just talk about two studies that came out on coffee, because again, we're coffee drinkers. We like coffee, and this just further adds to our confirmation bias on coffee. So if you're drinking coffee and somebody's telling you it's not good for you, here's a few more studies that you can throw at people just to kind of reassure yourself that you're doing the right thing. And listen, coffee's good for you. Yeah. There's no question. Yeah. All right, so one coffee looked at, because this is one of the complaints that we hear about coffee is that, it's going to cause high blood pressure. Well, a study, interestingly enough, was just done this year, not long ago actually, showing that increased coffee consumption is actually associated with a modest decrease in the risk of hypertension. It's actually can help a little bit. It doesn't raise your blood pressure, because that's one of the things that we hear is that coffee will raise your blood pressure. It raises your blood pressure. Yeah. So, not true. Now, also, which is interesting, is that going back to these food studies, is a lot of times people, when they drink coffee, they're not just drinking black coffee, or they're not using stevia as a sweetener. We live up in Northern Ontario, and everybody loves their double doubles and triple triples. And for those that are not Canadian,
it's flavored coffees. We're not talking about that, right?
No, and that's the thing, right? Now coffee has become an experience, right? So there's a lot of flavored coffees, a lot of sugared coffees, a lot of these things that are out there. We're just talking about. Your son and my grandson work part-time at Starbucks. And he was a Starbucks barista forever.
Yeah, and he used to tell me about how much sugar he put in some of those coffees.
Yeah.
He said, man, oh man, Grandpa, he said,
that's the thing.
It's syrup. It's not coffee.
No, I got a friend that, same thing, he loads his coffee up with sugar, and I was sitting with him and I said, I hate to break it to you, but you don't like coffee.
Yeah.
You think you like coffee, but you don't like coffee. That's not coffee. That you're sweetening it up so much that you're not a coffee fan. So we're talking about coffee. We're talking about
blood pressure. Imagine, because it's good for your blood vessels. Think about it, right?
Well, sure. But I mean,
it helps elevate nitric oxide.
Yep.
Okay. So what is nitric oxide? It's a substance in your body that opens up your blood vessels. It allows your blood vessels to open up. You're increasing blood supply. So tremendous, right? It really is. It's good for your heart.
So again, and now here's another study that was actually just published at the end of August, so less than a month ago. Actually, 1 month ago exactly, this thing was published, and it was published in the European Society of Cardiology. And this is a association study, so you got to take these with a huge grain of salt. Yeah, I mean, there's so many factors that they can't attribute or count. They have to take into consideration that they can't account for in these kind of studies, right? But interestingly enough, these are the kind of studies, the association studies are the ones you hear on the news all the time because they can make massive claims in them because they're just looking at a bunch of forms people filled in and they're just pulling, hey, it looks like people that had colon cancer ate this kind of food.
Yeah.
But doesn't say they didn't eat other kinds of food, right? So anyways, this is a very large observational study that had 20,000 participants. So they got a lot of data to look at. They collected a lot of data and they're looking for associations. And what they found is that higher coffee consumption is associated with a lower risk of earlier death. So they're saying this, higher coffee consumption is associated with lower risk of death. The observational study in nearly 20,000 participants suggests that coffee can be part of a healthy diet in healthy people. So here's an association study showing almost an inverse relationship with coffee and death. The higher coffee consumption, less risk of death. Mm-hmm. Which is again interesting, but it really, I mean, it's an association study. Yeah. So it's not.
We liked it.
No, I would use this to defend myself that's what happens, right? I mean, they look at these studies.
Yeah, and we know that, and so but I'll just give you a little practical thing to people because again, our experience is clinical, right? So I always tell people, look, have a coffee with your meal. Because it really helps coffee has been shown to really help with insulin resistance. Every podcast we talk about insulin, the effect of insulin, what it does in your body, the high circulating insulin. Well, coffee doesn't get rid of insulin, but it lowers your
it makes you a little bit more sensitive.
Yeah, makes you more sensitive so that your insulin works better.
Yeah, you need less of it.
Yeah. And I just found that it's a little tip I give to my patients, and that like their coffee. I said, have it with your meal.
Well, and coffee is a tremendous tool for somebody who is fasting, right? If they're doing some intermittent fasting, they shorten their eating window down, which is something that we love. We love the concept of shortening your eating window. And coffee is a great tool to help them get through that, right? Coffee, a lot of times it will get rid of hunger altogether. And it's got antioxidants. It's good for you. Really, for most people, coffee is beneficial. Now, like anything else, there are going to be some people that coffee is not good for them. But, I mean, for a majority of the people,
absolutely,
coffee is good for you. And listen, I drink my coffee black. You drink your coffee black. And I didn't start drinking my coffee black.
No, neither did I.
No, I didn't start. But it's amazing. People because I was the same way. I'm like, I can never have my coffee black. I mean, how do you drink black coffee? Now I enjoy it. If you're one that has to have a lot of sugar in your coffee, you don't have to go overnight and just all of a sudden start drinking black coffee because, I mean, that's going to be very tough to do. But again, if you look at this,
habits, right?
Yeah, and if you kind of have a goal and you have a mindset and hey, listen, I'm going to go from 3 sugars down to 1, down to none, and I'm going to do this over a period of X amount of time, then absolutely. So, coffee is good for you, for most people. And so if you're wondering about coffee, go ahead. And the interesting thing is that the research is showing even 4 cups a day beneficial. We're not just saying even 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day. For a lot of people, they get some benefit if they're drinking 3 or 4 cups of coffee a day.
Yeah. And I think you wrote a newsletter one time about, they were saying, just one more thing about coffee, that you can get dehydrated drinking coffee, right? And that's not
necessarily true at all, right? So, people would think, caffeine makes you urinate more. It's going to dehydrate you quicker, but that's not necessarily the case. Again, what causes you to release water and dehydrate? Insulin.
Yeah.
Right. But that's another episode. So, okay, we'll move on from coffee, but bottom line, drink coffee. It's good for you. And, coffee is awesome.
Yeah.
No question. So now let's talk about one of the questions that we're getting asked a fair amount via email or you're getting in the clinic has to do with flu season coming up. Now, let's just say this right off the top when it comes to this. Now, we're not saying that if you take these things, you're not going to get the flu. We're not saying that. However, research is pretty clear on this, and N equals 1, so people have a lot of testimonials. If they do get sick, it's a lot shorter than everybody else. The recovery time's faster, and that's the key. You want to do these things so that you can, most likely avoid the flu altogether. But if you do get it, your recovery time will be quicker, and research backs that up. And that's what we're talking about, because some people ask us all the time, I get people, do you ever get sick? Well, I don't get sick that often, but do I ever get sick? Everybody gets sick here and there, but I really don't get sick that often. And when I do get sick, I recover very quickly.
Yeah. And that's the key, right? It's the real key.
And for me, one of the things that trumps your immune system is sleep. So a lot of research showing this, that if you have a couple of nights in a row of messed up sleep, even if you have a tremendous immune system, you're most likely going to get something. You're going to be run down. And I find that true with myself. If my sleep cycle gets affected for a few times in a row, then I just become more susceptible. But I can attest, you can attest, and a lot of people can, that if they take the right things, they usually don't get sick, but when they do, it's much shorter. And one more thing I want to say, we're not going to talk about the flu shot again, because we really can't talk about the flu shot. I think it, pretty obvious if you listen to us how we would lean on that. But let me say this. One of the things that I find funny, and you find funny because we've talked about this off the air many times, is that if somebody gets the flu shot and they don't get sick, they say, see, the flu shot works. And if somebody doesn't get the flu shot and they don't get sick, they see, I don't need it, I don't get sick. All you have to do is Google the effective rate of anything, including the flu shot, to find out
what its effectiveness is.
I like the X-Files. And one of their sayings, the truth is out there. The truth is out there. I mean, it's out there. So just look it up, right?
Yeah.
But okay, so let's talk about
the Martin Clinic protocol.
Yeah, what can you do?
Natural, flu shot.
So let's talk about the most important factor that would determine whether or not somebody gets sick. Because again, if you put 10 people into a room and you throw the flu bug in there, not 10 people are going to come out of that room sick, right? 1 or 2 may get it. What is the determining factor whether or not you are able to get sick or not? And of course, it has to do with your vitamin D levels.
Yeah. Think about it, right? Like, the common sense thing is, and I'll give you a real good example of it this year. When do you get the flu? When did they tell you to get the flu shot, right? They're starting now. The fall and the winter season, especially in your dark months, but they're punching to get the flu shot. So when do you get the flu? Mostly. It's in the fall and winter. When you don't get it is in the summer, almost invariably. There's never a flu outbreak. But isn't it interesting this year in the area in which we live, because we almost forget, because we've had such a beautiful fall.
Well, we've had a nicer fall than summer.
We've had an Indian summer big time here in Northern Ontario. It has been gorgeous. And really along the whole eastern seaboard, it's been beautiful, right? It really has been great. Like, we didn't see it all summer.
No, we had.
As a matter of fact, we had nothing but rain all summer. We had a cloud over us all summer. Well, you know what? There was an epidemic this year of pneumonia this summer, and colds and the flu bug. And that never happens, right, in the summertime. And the reason it doesn't happen in the summertime is because the sun.
Yeah, people usually get enough. Usually get enough vitamin D. They probably don't get enough, but they get better amounts than they get any other time of the year. Well, and let's talk about this, because I think this is something that people need to understand, that how do you get vitamin D from the sun? Like, how do you get it? Obviously, people say, well, you got to go out in the sun, but where does most of that chemical reaction take place? On what part of your body?
Arms and legs.
Arms and legs, right? So summertime, you got short sleeve shirts on, and you got, you got shorts, and and your arms and legs are exposed. You're getting the sun, and everything's working out great. You can't get it from a window, right? It gets filtered out. You can't get it from a window. You can't get it from sitting in your car. It doesn't work that way. So you're out. As this temperature changes and it goes down, it could be just as sunny, but you're not exposed to it the same way. You're just not, right? You're covered up mostly.
Yeah.
So then somebody goes from getting enough D every day to their D levels go down. Then they get introduced to, whatever's out there, and their immune system is weakened. It's ready to be taken advantage of. Yeah. So we suggest to keep that level high, we suggest that people take enough vitamin D to help them fight this stuff off. Because, again, we've said this before. We've talked about this so many times off the air. It's amazing how many people have low levels of D3. It's got to be one of the most common. B12, D, and omega are probably the most common deficiencies that we see. And what's interesting is that D is one of those things you just don't want to be low in, because it is associated with all-cause mortality, right? I mean,
every part of your body needs vitamin D. Almost every cell in your body has a receptor for vitamin D.
Yeah, it's absolutely vital for health.
Yeah.
As you come into flu season, you want to make sure that you are getting enough vitamin D3 in your. I mean, you got to supplement it.
Yeah, I started September the 15th. We had a beautiful 2 weeks. I probably could have waited for 2 weeks if I'd have known the weather was going to be.
Yeah, I kind of decreased the amount that I take. I always take D capsules.
Yeah.
I take, we have a D3 that we have in our clinic, and it's 4,000 IUs. I'll take that. In the winter, I can ramp up to 8 to 12, depending, because, again, I just don't get as much sun as I used to get. So the first thing, to protect yourself from the flu and to make sure that if you get it, it's much shorter, is have the optimal levels of D3. So make sure you're getting enough vitamin D3.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Let's talk about something that's very important as well is glutathione levels.
Yeah. Yeah. And glutathione is your master detoxer, master antioxidant in your body, right?
Yeah, glutathione is like liquid fuel for your immune system.
Yeah.
Your immune system works well when glutathione levels are optimized, right? So you want to make sure that those levels are optimized. So how do you do that? Well, there are two things you can do to optimize glutathione levels. One is probiotics.
Yeah.
Probiotics are a very crucial precursor to glutathione levels.
And think about it, because even in probiotics and vitamin D, right? Because the synthesizing of vitamin D happens at the skin level, but the absorption of the vitamin D happens in the gut. So you need to have good probiotic.
Absolutely.
You need good friendly bacteria to absorb, which is a fat-soluble vitamin. It's really a hormone, not a vitamin. But vitamin D, you need to have good gut even to absorb it, right? Because you need that friendly. And that's why probiotics they elevate your glutathione. They
help you they help you absorb, convert. They do a lot. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
so it's part of our natural flu shot. We think you should be taking probiotic
every day.
All the time.
Yeah, people should be taking probiotic every day.
And you know what? You need a broad spectrum. If you're wondering what kind of probiotic, because there's folks, we have handpicked all the different bacteria,
strains. Yeah.
The different strains. You need them because the different strains do different things in your body, and one of them is a great absorber of your vitamin D. And so, anyway, it's important to do that as your natural flu shot.
And then also another way to boost glutathione and to improve your immune system is with a good antioxidant. Of course, in our clinic, we use Navitol, which is a pine bark extract. It's, again, a tremendous way to boost glutathione levels, tremendous for your health. Now, let's talk about the four things. So we talked about D3 levels. We talked about glutathione and two ways to boost that, which, of course, is by taking a probiotic and a good antioxidant. And the last one is something that you talk about all the time, which is, well, it's funny because, whenever you used to have that radio program and every time I would fill in for you, somebody would call and ask a question on this all the time because you talked about it all the time, which, of course, is oil of oregano.
Yeah, I love it. It's an essential oil. It's very good for you, right? And oil of oregano, what I love about it is it's a spice, right? And it's a tremendous antifungal, antiparasitic, antiviral. and I use it like for people that get cold sores and people that have, shingles and all these viruses, and it's antiviral, cold, the flu bug, usually viruses and bacteria. You got the benefit of all those antis in oil of oregano. And I love oil of oregano. There are different ways you can use it. You can, I use it orally because oil of oregano, I spray my toothbrush with it.
And it tastes,
it's strong.
It's strong.
Yeah.
There are two things. It's funny. There are two things that people take on a. Well, before I even get into that, how often should somebody be taking oil of oregano? Do they take it before they get sick? Is it something that or they just kind of?
Well, I like it because I like oil of oregano in this sense because oil of oregano is something you can use on a daily basis. It's not because people have sometimes said that oil of oregano it's going to kill everything, kills you good and bad. No, it doesn't. It just kills you bad bacteria. So don't worry about taking it. It's good orally. Like if you want something oral that keeps your friendly bacteria, you want to have a good, like leaky gut, and we always talk about that, the importance of good versus bad bacteria. Well, if you have a natural antibiotic that takes away only your bad bacteria, oil of oregano. So there's a lot of ways of using it. We love it in the office in a spray. I love the spray because it's so convenient. You can spray
and we have
it in the back
nasal
of your
spray.
throat.
We have it in a nasal spray.
And that nasal spray, think about it.
I love that stuff.
That stuff is unbelievable when you think about it, because where are you going to get a bug? A bug will come in the oral cavity or the nasal cavity, right? Or even in your eyes. It comes in the sinuses. That's where they rub their eyes or they rub their nose or whatever, and that's where those things come in, right?
When you have, when we have that oil of oregano nasal spray, it is, it works. It does. It works.
For allergies,
it's awesome. There are two natural things that are good for you that are very tough to take, right? Oil of oregano is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, the other one is apple cider vinegar. Yeah. You never get used to that.
Yeah.
You just never get used to taking apple cider vinegar. It's just one of those things
But it is good for you. Right?
It's very good for you.
Yeah.
You could be 2 years down the road. You're still drinking it like you're in a movie, taking a shot of the strongest whatever. It's tough to do.
Yeah.
People still shiver every time.
Well, you know what I call our oil of oregano is spray and pray.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what
you need to pray for 5 seconds after.
It's just
either putting it in the back of your throat at the first sign of a cold or using the sinus spray, because that's where it kills. It kills the cold virus and not coming into but you want to do it immediately.
Yeah,
right?
it absolutely works. Yeah. So again, let's just kind of quickly summarize as we end this episode. So if you want to give your body the best chance to fight off and possibly and most likely avoid the flu altogether, you want to make sure your D3 levels are optimized. You want to boost your glutathione levels. That's why we talked about probiotics and a good antioxidant like our Navitol or pine bark extract.
Navitol's tremendous.
Yeah, awesome. And oil of oregano. And, you always dub this as the natural flu shot. It's very effective. It works. You've been using it for years. It's what we do to keep healthy.
Yeah.
And if we feel anything coming on, we just increase quite a bit the amount of all those things that we take. That's kind of how, and it works well.
Yeah.
It works well. All right. Well, we want to thank you for listening and joining us on this episode. If you're listening to us in iTunes, we would love if you would leave us just a quick review. It takes 2 minutes. You can do it right from inside the app. You can review us right then and there. That would help us out tremendously. If you're on our website and you don't get our newsletters, I would recommend that you sign up for our free newsletters. We talk about studies. We give you practical advice, tips, and secrets, and all those kind of things to help you live a healthier life. And again, we want to thank you for listening. And again, join us again next week as we talk about another interesting health topic. Thanks again.